Hi, welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the original podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner. I'm a critic, consultant, and programmer based in Toronto, and this is The Other Thing I Do. My guest this week is Barry Hertz, a colleague and friend who's about to publish Welcome to the Family, the explosive story behind Fast and Furious, the blockbusters that supercharged the world, which explores the series that uncannily anticipated the shifting currents of pop culture while changing the business of global entertainment at the same time. It's in stores next Tuesday, November 25th. It's exhaustively researched and reported, and it's a really fun read. You can pre-order it right now at your local indie bookstore or go to the Toronto book launch at the Hot Doc Cinema on the 25th. Tickets for that, and for Barry's screening of the first Fast and Furious movie on Friday the 28th, can be found at hotdocs.ca. Barry picked Fast 5 for this episode, which probably won't surprise anyone. The 2011 chapter of the series, directed by Justin Lin, who'd already goosed the franchise to new levels with the underrated third film Tokyo Drift, charted a new path for the Fast and Furious movies, with Vin Diesel's Dominic Toretto and Paul Walker's Brian O'Connor leaving street racing behind to mount an elaborate heist on a bank in Rio de Janeiro, a job that requires them and their crew to find a whole new gear and also bring them to the attention of relentless federal agent Luke Hobbs, played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Cars, chaos, and conflagration. Fast 5 had it all. That's why it's everybody's favorite. This is Someone Else's Movie.
If you were to poll the Fast and Furious fandom, 99% would likely say Fast 5 is their favorite. I think it is universally acknowledged as when the series very much leveled up in terms of ambition, in terms of artistry, in terms of just like pure insanity. And it really that's the one where it transformed itself from, like this not niche-ish thing, but like a kind of movie with a ceiling in terms of its ambitions and audience. There's only so much you can do with a pure street racing movie or kind of a pure street level thriller. And this one transformed itself through sheer force of will and charisma into this globe-trotting heist / almost like superhero adventure.
The first movie is it's really just a remake of Point Break with cars instead of surfing.
Totally.
Yeah, and then by X we end up in the full-on Mission Impossible scale. Like they're saving the Vatican from the Joker. Like it's just
yeah.
It's this incredible elasticity that the franchise has just sort of anointed itself in this sort of place in genre where it's like, you know what? We're going to try to pretend it's as real as possible, but we live in a fantasy world sponsored by Corona and nitrous oxide. And I love that I'm still interested in it. And Fast 5 is the reason. I think as you say, like it is just a quantum elevation of everything they were doing.
Completely. And I mean, a lot of that had to do with, of course, The Rock, bringing in Dwayne Johnson into the fold. In those early trailers for Fast 5, which are very smartly marketed, it's The Rock that we hear from first. Like we're introduced to this thing as a Rock movie. Only later on, midway through that trailer, do we realize what we have just suddenly become invested in. So that was a very clever thing. And one of the points I make in the book is that because of all the various contract shenanigans and timeline confusion of the first 4 films, which we follow different characters doing different things in different parts of the world, 5 is the one that stitched together all those elements to be this cinematic universe. And, we kind of forget that Fast 5 came out a full year before Avengers did. So it was really kind of on the forefront of that cinematic universe franchise exploitation method.
Do you think it was the rise of the Marvel project that let them gear into this? I mean, how do you even, you've talked to the people who made the movies. How did they get Universal to invest in this, to believe not just the money, but the commitment of, yeah, sure, you can do more of these this way, like from what it originally started as? Because this was Fast and Furious is what, 2001, right? Like it's
2001. Yeah, that's
10
the first
years
one.
later. It's this.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of each successive sequel was a little bit of a miracle unto its own. Like a movie that shouldn't really have come together or existed, but like managed to beat the odds. I mean, the second one was kind of a given. because the first one did so well on such a relatively small production budget, and also was a just a Scrooge McDuck vault of money, found money because of the DVD market. I mean, that's where the film also like really just delivered found money back then when a lot of movies did that for studios. But anyways, it made so much that the second movie was a given. You know, they had a lot of trouble getting Vin back into it. The second movie made a little bit more than the first one did, but it also cost about twice as much. So the math was, you know, still complicated. They were thinking of maybe sending the franchise to direct to DVD, like they had done, Universal had done to seemingly great success with their Million American Pie movies and Bring It On sequels.
Yeah, what are there, like 6 Dragon Hearts?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And so it looked like it was going that way for a bit. And then Justin Lin kind of came on board for the third one and had this more global vision. And they started to feel they could maybe franchise it out in a different way, in that, okay, maybe we do this time Fast and Furious Tokyo, next time we could do Fast and Furious Mexico City, something like that. And they made the film, and then, you know, there's a big anecdote in my book about how they got Vin involved in that cameo at the very end of Tokyo Drift, which kind of just, again, like it reignited interest in the whole thing, and people realized, I missed these guys, I missed this guy, and I missed this world. And then they kind of put together number 4, and they thought number 4 was going to be a capstone to it. They're like, okay, we'll get everybody back, we'll see, you know, what it does, hopefully it'll be fine. And then, you know, we're kind of entering that period of like extreme nostalgia for stuff that hasn't happened all that long ago. And they, again, marketed it brilliantly. The tagline was new model, original parts. You know, Vin, Paul Walker, Michelle Rodriguez, Jordana Brewster, all the original from the first one. And then that one just blew past expectations. It doubled, tripled what they thought it was going to make on opening weekend. Again, huge DVD market. And they're like, okay, I guess we still have to keep doing these because there's still an audience for it and we're still making money hand over fist. But executives inside the studio realized, you know what, we can't just do another one of these because it's getting that much more expensive to make. The stars are costing that much more money. So we have to make it bigger so it attracts a even bigger audience. And that's when they're like, we need to level this up into something like a heist film, something that would be a little bit more for quadrant crowd pleasing.
Right. So the fourth one is still like, basically it's a street revenge picture. It's like still rooted in the 70s and 80s movies that these things came from.
Exactly. It's like, Michelle Rodriguez's character is quote unquote dead. And Vin Diesel and Paul Walker have to go avenge her and, you know, infiltrate this Mexican cartel. And even though it is directed by Justin Lin, who directed the third with such gusto and would direct 5, 6, and then 9, it is one of the weaker films in my opinion. It's a very dark film. It's kind of the darkest Fast film, both in theme and actual color. It's just, you know, everybody's a little grumpy and, you know, they're wielding a lot of guns and the set pieces aren't all that great. And yeah, they still haven't figured out a way to jump from the street racing stuff into something a little bit more next level.
The fourth one is like, it's weird that it was supposed to wrap everything up because it is so grim, and that's just not what those movies are. And then you get 5 back and suddenly it's bright and sunny and joyful. And it's the first, I think it's the first movie where they learn that death is irrelevant. Like there's no physical risk to, like, they, you know, what is it? It's in 9, right? Where everybody starts questioning their mortality.
Yeah. In 9, Tyrese gets a little mini arc there where he's basically stepping back and looking at the audience and saying, how are we still alive? None of this really makes sense.
But it's the invitation to the audience that comes in 5 that makes it okay to, you know, root for spectacular. Like it's Fast X where we find out that at least one person was actually killed in the vault heist. but it's dozens, if not hundreds of people in those cars being smashed off this bridge. And nobody, the audience doesn't care. It never bothers us that this is happening.
I mean, Fast Five also, it kind of sets that expectation or reality at the very beginning with the bus crash, the prison bus crash, which was the last thing that they actually shot. They shot this after the production had basically wrapped, and the studio was so happy with what they had delivered that they were like, what do you think, if you had to add an extra sequence in there, what do you think you would want to do if we gave you a ton of money? And Justin was like, I want to crash that prison bus that we see at the end of Ford carrying Vin Diesel's character Dom into Lompoc prison, and then they intercept it. Initially, the film was just going to open with they busted him out somehow. But we see that amazing prison bus crash, which does a cannon roll and sets kind of a world record there. And I have a whole mini chapter about how they pulled that off. But there's also one line in the newscast reports of that where it said some minor injuries, but remarkably no fatalities in this crash that looks like it would kill 1 million people. And that kind of just sets the stakes for the rest of the destruction of Rio de Janeiro, in which, if even a 10th of that action were to happen in real life, it would result in catastrophic loss of life. But here we're just like cheering on as these banks get destroyed and street signs get knocked down and police cars like just get totally like smashed and obliterated, and nobody in one of those vehicles would survive at all.
It's the thing that you kind of want in an F1 movie, right? Like nobody wants to admit they're there for the crashes, but there's always some sense of danger and risk. And here it's bloodless. I mean, by definition, right? Like they want the PG-13 rating. You can't show red blood. It's the one rule.
There is though. They did on the Blu-rays of most of the certainly Fast Five and perhaps going up higher, they do have unrated versions, right, where Justin Lin got to add some squibs and a few more cuss words and some blood, not a lot, but some.
Yeah, it's never as intense as, you hear the stories about Scorsese shooting extra violent scenes for Casino so the MPAA would freak out and he could use the cut that he wanted to use in the first place.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, they knew they had to do.
Yeah. And it is, again, it's that weird, it's not even a push-pull. It's a synthesis of appealing to horny teenagers who showed up for the first one. Like at this point now in Fast X and I don't think there's one in Hobbs and Shaw, but the shot of, just a bikini woman from behind walking to the race, which is mandatory apparently for all of these films, they've now become funny. Like I see them with audiences and they laugh at the shot.
Of course. I mean, because it's, they know what they're there for. And those bikini, the tuner party scenes, which Justin Lin has been on record as always hating to have shot, not necessarily because they're like incredibly sexist and all that stuff, but because often they would be shooting these scenes like in very cold temperatures at late at night. All the extras in their bikinis are absolutely miserable. And they have to pretend to be, gyrating and around these cars. Like they're basically about to have sex with them in a David Cronenberg like fashion.
Well, that's what I mean. Like that's the push and pull of wanting to sexualize everything because the cars are as much sex objects as the actors are. Mm-hmm. And also to acknowledge that these films are also for children. Like there's not children, but there is an adolescent glee that comes with each one of these movies. I have to admit, like I had seen the first two and really didn't think very much of them. But then when I saw Tokyo Drift with a crowd, at a press screening, you were probably there. It was just one of those things where it's like, oh, I get it. Like these are fun. These are about like physics and I think that's Justin Lin, right? He's bringing a visual sense and a flair to it. Also, that was the year that I learned to drive stick, so obviously I was identifying with it.
Well, you're ahead of me in that regard because I still haven't learned to drive stick, and I have no intention of doing so.
It's a nightmare. Everything is counterintuitive.
I don't know, like just automatic exists. It's not a terrible thing.
I do. I have to admit, I do like driving manual transmissions. You do get to, it's so silly, but it's true. You do interact more with the vehicle. Like all four
Mm,
of your limbs are working and
mhm,
it's harder to be distracted.
mm.
It's way more fun on the highway when you're just sort of downshifting and learning what the car can do.
Yeah, yeah,
And there is a little bit of that in what Lin is doing, in what he's letting Lucas Black do, like just the sense of discovery.
yeah.
That's not in any of the other Fast movies because by the time we meet these characters, they're already the best at what they do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. Yeah, they're so proficient. I mean, that was one of the interesting things learning about what the stunt drivers had to do for Tokyo is at the time, like drifting was very much not a thing in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
and getting, Hollywood stunt drivers who knew how to drift was one thing. Making them appear as if they were learning how to drift is another. So they had to be worse at the beginning and just
Yeah.
like slowly level it up. So that was kind of neat.
Yeah, it's all the little things that go into a project of this scale that make it look like there's no work being done at all. And this is
Right.
before CG makes other things possible and before
Mm-hmm.
wire removal makes everything safer. I remember when Fury Road came out, there was all the coverage of how Miller wanted it to be as tactile and physical as possible. Like what was it? Real cars, real people, real desert, and then used all the digital technology and acknowledged it. This isn't like he wasn't fooling anybody, but it's like this
Yeah.
is how you make it safe.
Yeah.
And these like Fast Five has scenes where it is genuinely, especially on a big screen when you haven't, like for the first time you see the movie at that press screening, you are thrilling to that vault heist because you cannot believe your eyes. And
Yeah.
some of it's digital and some of it's real, and none of that matters because it's what you said. It's the apex of this fantasia that they've been building towards, and suddenly you can do anything.
Yeah. And I mean, Lin has been a big proponent, and I know people who will look at Nine and talk about the space thing will probably, guffaw at this, but he was very much a proponent of, in camera practical effects as much as possible,
Mm-hmm.
with VFX used not to create the stunt but to manipulate the environment around the stunt. So yeah, wire removal, compositing the background. I mean, so much of that final chase in Tokyo Drift through Shibuya is shot in the back streets of Los Angeles. A lot of that was just digitally rendered, basically.
Yeah. But we buy into it because there's already been an acceptance of the fantasy. These people are larger. They're physically, literally larger than life people running around in cars that they shouldn't. I mean, how do they even get into some of these things? Like there are moments where they play with scale and how big the Rock is versus how small some of the other.
Well, you never see Dwayne Johnson get into like one of the compact sports cars. He is
Right.
always in a vehicle that is matching his size and bulk, and often it is a modified version of that vehicle so that he can actually do it. Yeah, but it's true. I mean, yeah, you wouldn't. There's a synthesis between man and machine here, which is very interesting to explore, and which the first film tried to get at in a little bit more of a surrealist way, with the gear shift moment where we fly through the engine,
Right.
which director Rob Cohen was very much, in his mind, that was like the centaur moment where we merge the man and the beast into one kind of fast creature.
Right. It just felt so matrixy too. It was one of those things where we're just
Right.
at that point in time where everything is possible with CGI, and some people knew how to use it and some people just took a gamble on it. But it works in Fast and the Furious because it's in the opening credit sequence, right? Like it sets you up to expect it. And Cohen's enough of a technician that he can make an audience buy it as it's happening. But then there are other films that tried it around the same time and just looked inept.
Yeah, or garish, or just exactly like using it because it was available to them rather than serving any kind of purpose.
Yeah. I guess that's the thing that Lin does too, is that he finds a way to marry the sort of scrappy original vibe of the first movie with the increasing possibilities of what car stunts could do. I mean, you look back at we've been watching a lot of 70s movies, and there's inevitably a crash, and it's complex and dangerous, and you kind of freak out a little bit when you're watching it. I mean, I'm sure audiences at the time, before like Smokey and the Bandit made everything safe and bouncy,
Right.
there was a sense of risk. And so you get 40 years of movies where the risk is removed and audiences are there for the demolition derby. And then somehow Lin finds a way to actually make us understand how difficult these things are and how dangerous. I think that happens in Tokyo Drift more than anything, because you get to see someone drive scared.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that never happens again, but we still enjoy it.
Exactly. Like they're driving for their lives, and there's real fear behind those eyes rather than any kind of sense of bravado or cockiness, or just, like, I'm very confident that I'm going to get to the other side of this in one piece. Yeah, so the stakes are there, but that's kind of, Lin is also very careful about any set piece that he has, and he's talked about this many times, is very much the emotional beats of it. It's not a matter of getting one car from point A to point B, but he wants those character moments to inform every swerve and every hit and everything like that. And you can see that in Tokyo very much, but I think in 5, especially during the Rio chase, it is that much more effective, because we are constantly darting between the perspectives of Vin's characters and Paul's character, who, when they are tethered to, they're both pulling this giant safe in their Dodge Chargers, which is tethered to both of their vehicles, but they're also tethered to one another on an emotional scale, and they're constantly making these moves without any dialogue, that is ensuring the other gets to safety versus them. They're constantly in this race of self-sacrifice to make sure the other one makes it. That it informs a lot of the way that scene plays out.
And it's something that the series had to not get past, but integrate and memorialize after Walker's death. Made 7 the big farewell, although I understand that was already underway.
Well, I mean, Paul had increasingly grown, tired of being the movie star. And while Fast was, very much a huge source of revenue for him, he really could have walked away happy at any time without having to make another one. And Vin was always the one kind of getting him, like, come on, let's do it. And it wasn't that 7 was intended to be his finale. In a way, he's probably going to always return in some fashion, but he was looking to take a decreased role in it, certainly. And you see that in the way the character arc is kind of set out at the very beginning, in that he's trying to, balance his desire to go be a family man with his pull into whatever illicit scheme Dom has going at the time.
It's a strange place for a franchise to put its heart, right? Like I keep trying to figure out, there were dozens of reviews, if not hundreds of reviews over the course of those first 7 movies about the homoeroticism that's inherent in their relationship, and how Brian has to be with Mia so he can stay around Dom, and all that clumsy, not retconning, but constantly it's I think about this is a weird bump, but I think about Connor for Real's anti-AIDS song, where he keeps reminding everybody that he's straight. Like they have to show the mass audience that would be incredibly uncomfortable with any sense of other than brotherly love going on between these two characters. And I'm not sure that Walker or Diesel is a strong enough actor to hint at the subtlety, which is why I think it's so powerful, why they're looking at each other with genuine love and admiration, and they're not subtle enough to read it in. And so you can absolutely believe there's a romance that we never get to see.
Yeah. And I mean, very much this is other than that, very core streak of, homoeroticism through it. And I think that comes to a peak at certain moments in 5, certainly with Vin and The Rock and their tussle, their very sweaty, grunty tussle in the warehouse. But this is an incredibly curiously sexless franchise. There are very few bedroom scenes between, long-term couples. Paul Walker and Jordana Brewster, we see them in bed once, and that's in the very first film. when they're in the back of Brian's like sleeping in the back of this auto parts store that he's working in, and they just had sex, but we didn't see any consummation of that. It's all in the aftermath.
Yeah, I assume that scene is just there because there was a scene with Keanu Reeves and Lori Petty like that in Point Break, and they just had to follow the template is there.
Exactly. And then on the other side, I mean, we have, Vin and Michelle Rodriguez playing this couple, which I believe is, due to the nature of the series, they have set the record for the longest on-screen romantic relationship in cinematic history. I mean, we have 25 years of Dom and Letty here, and yet I don't think there's been, maybe except for the first film, where there's that scene where he kind of pulls her up in the garage. There's never really been any genuine heat delivered by those two performers in terms of just heteronormative romance. We believe that they have a bond, a shakable kind of commitment to one another, but in terms of actual sexual chemistry, it's totally absent.
Hey, it's Norm interrupting my own show to bring you up to speed on Shiny Things, my newsletter about physical media, culture, and the odd streaming project. Last week, I wrote about the new releases of The Naked Gun, The Toxic Avenger, Downton Abbey, The Grand Finale, and Spinal Tap 2, and Universal's 40th anniversary trilogy set of Robert Zemeckis' Back to the Future, a personal favorite. Sign up for a 14-day free trial at shiny-things.ghost.io or find a link in the Semcast Blue Sky account. You like reading about movies? I like writing about them. Come check it out. It's fascinating and also somehow plays to the family-friendly aspects of it. And I don't mean family-friendly, but the sense that you can bring the kids to these movies and you're not going to see anything that's going to challenge or upset you as a parent or them as kids.
Right.
And it is so odd that that's fine, right? Like, I don't know how else to frame it. The Bond films are about vicarious pleasure. You watch these movies and you can pretend you're traveling the world and sleeping with exotic people and shooting the bad people and saving the day. And the Mission Impossible films, again, Tom Cruise doesn't have that interest in his storytelling, but he does keep giving himself potential love interests as a producer that he never actually consummates a relationship with, which is another kind of fascinating. And for the Fast films, it's just like, you know what? Just take it as read. It's the light beer thing. It's the unlimited money from government accounts that probably don't exist in the first place. But this whole sense that there's some weird string pulling going on to keep them as clean and squeaky clean as possible in order to attract like the largest audience possible, which makes absolute sense, while still being incredibly subversive in the diverse casting. Like, I love the idea that Vin Diesel's project is to simply put as many faces and bodies and people on screen from everywhere and everything in order to draw more people in. Like, it's purely a financial motive as I understand it, but it's also kind of doing great work.
Yeah, I mean, the motives are there, and it does stem from that original. I feel initially the motives weren't there financially. It was just like, okay, there was a genuine effort to be authentic to the scenes of car culture at that time in LA, which were very much divided into Hispanic, into Black, into Asian. And as it kind of went on, they realized they were very much had accidentally appealed to all those underserved demographics who had been longing to see their own stories on screen. They're like, okay, we get you. Well, okay, let's be a little bit more calculated about this going forward. And it is true, like, Vin Diesel, his production company is named One Race. This is very much a large scale goal of his, is to, if you can drive with me, doesn't matter the color of your skin, or it just matters this, the size of your motor, and how fast you can actually go. And he, that you can be with me and race with me as long as we're on the same kind of road. That's what gets everybody in, because it isn't exclusionary. It is inclusive in the most at once calculated way, and totally, genuine and organic.
Yeah, I think that he is, as a producer, I think Diesel is trying to do something with an overall like positivity that maybe you don't often see in a franchise of this scale, because cynicism inevitably creeps in with the profit motive, right? We have to give the people what they want. But he's managed to find a way to do that while still somehow, it's like the Seth Rogen thing. He's clearly not the stoner idiot he pretends to be, or pretended to be at a certain point in his career, which got him typed. And everyone else just still makes jokes about how, oh, he's high all the time. And it's like, he couldn't produce 25 television series and star and direct. And like, he's functional.
Yeah.
But he also, Rogen as a persona, as a presence, indulges that and lets people underestimate him all the time. Diesel, I think, has found a way to turn his limitations as an actor. And, he's good at one thing. He's great at glowering, and physically he's an interesting performer, even as he's over 50 now, right? Like he's not much younger than me.
No. He's I should know this off by heart, but yes, that's the correct range.
But he has managed to be at the center of this gargantuan franchise as the producer and the star, and ride out every single silliness around it, like the thing about people contractually not being able to lose fights, and the thing about how people have to have X amount of screen time. Like every time somebody calls him out for one of the vanity aspects of his job, he manages to work around it or even incorporate it into the movie somehow and make a joke of the fact that people can't lose fights. I don't understand how he manages to do this and still like retain the goodwill of the audience every time, because it's like, it sounds like he's alienating everybody else, except that he's not.
No, I mean, his headspace is the most fascinating place I could imagine occupying even just a few minutes of time. But I mean, this is also part of his, this has always been a part of his character, is that I feel he's like the living embodiment of The Secret. He puts himself out there into the world and he makes things happen through pure force of will. And he's been able to do that. And he's been able to convince everybody to come along for the ride because he approaches it with that much sincerity, but with a very, calculated sense of business acumen. And realizing what people want to see, and here's how I can give it to them without kind of compromising anything along the way.
Yeah, well, he's brought people along from this little street racing series into a gargantuan, it had its ocean sequences for a couple of movies, and now it's spies and supervillains and the fate of the world left and right, and somehow death does not matter. I mean, Gal Gadot shows up at the end of the 10th one, and everybody's okay with it.
I mean, I don't know if everybody was okay with that. I think that might have been the resurrection that broke the camel's back. Who knows? We'll see. But I mean, it's also, he is and will be forever associated with this franchise. But he, through that same spirit of, I'm not going to let anybody tell me what can and cannot be possible, and I know exactly what people want. I mean, he does have several other franchises to his name, and say what you will about his level of participation in Guardians, or say what you will about the quality of the Riddick films, or his in and out participation with Triple X. But I mean, those are still, viable things that he is keeping afloat, which a lot of other actors of his generation, of his caliber, cannot really claim.
Yeah, well, it's his, I think, David Twohy in Pitch Black found something that became a defining aspect of found something in the character of Riddick that becomes a defining aspect of Diesel, which is the absolute humorlessness that becomes funny.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like he is really good at being unreadable as an actor. And I don't know that that's deliberate, or at least I don't know that it was in the beginning, but he's absolutely leaned into it. Because if you watch him in Saving Private Ryan, and he's got this swagger and this big honking, New York guy presence, which is absolutely appropriate for what Spielberg is doing with archetypes and stereotypes and like reinventing the World War II picture. But it doesn't work in anything else. And so moving away from that, he finds something else that he can do that fills as much space, because you always want to look at the person who isn't articulating what he's thinking. Who's keeping it to himself.
Yeah.
And you put him in an action context, and that's interesting. Put him behind the wheel of a car, And yeah, you believe that he is one with the machine because he's completely given himself over to the physical action of it. Like there's
there's no thought, there's just doing. I mean, that's
yeah. And that's heroic, right? Like that's the person you want on your side. And it's just this fascinating contradiction of somebody who's giving almost nothing back to the camera that you can't stop looking at. And it works in extreme sports situations like the Triple X movies. I'm a big fan of State of the Union just because he's the one calling out how preposterous the whole thing is. And then the other franchise is Riddick. I mean, he wants it to be this gargantuan space epic. Like Chronicles of Riddick is basically his version of Dune. And I think he said as much, right?
Yeah, no, completely. And, I mean, this all stems from his, he is very much a well-documented lover of mythos. The dungeon, he was a Dungeons and Dragons guy growing up, and he's always tried to plot out these stories as densely as possible, which is often a hard image to square, not only with the physicality of what we see on screen and the characters who he plays, but with Hollywood's kind of appetite for that. He was kind of a little bit on the forefront of that, because now we need that kind of Easter eggification of everything, and we need to have every journey laid out 5-10 years in advance, and it certainly wasn't always that way. And yeah, you take like a little movie like Pitch Black, which is a very good man on a mission kind of anti-hero turned savior project, and then you like pull back from that to find that it's one of a million stories in this huge universe that he's trying to build. The ambition is there, the hubris is also there. It's a funny thing.
Yeah, and it serves the fast films, because I think you need to have an outsized sense of where the next room in the dungeon is, where the next map is going to lead you to build a thing as big as this. And I guess the other question is, Fast X has been, what is that, 4 years back now?
It'll be 3. It was 2023 summer.
23. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Much more recent than I thought. I don't know why. Oh no, it's because I'm thinking of Fast 9. That's the one I had to watch during the pandemic.
I also had to watch that on my computer screen with
it's no way to experience
1,000 different watermarks on it.
Yeah, it's always fun to try to watch around your email address to see what's going on in a given stunt moment.
Oh yeah,
But so X is 3 years ago, which isn't the biggest gap that these movies have had.
No, but none of the other ones had left off on such a question mark of an ending. I mean, this was left on a literal cliffhanger. The characters are on a cliff, like staring down imminent destruction, and the other half of the characters have just been on a jet that smashed into that cliff. So to leave it on such a note of to be continued is, it's a tough one to square.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was his way of guaranteeing the next one, but of course they would have already had the contract signed.
I mean, it's a good way of doing so, and that was initially the plan, but now we are in a state of suspended animation.
Yeah, it's interesting in that way too. We have this juggernaut that is still, like, it has the illusion of movement, even though we know that it's stalled. Like there is going to be there has to be another movie, because the audience demands it, the fans demand it, the producers demand it. Obviously, everybody wants one. And I do find that fascinating, just at a point where, like the Mission Impossible series, because I keep comparing it to it, has reached its zenith. I think like it's peaked and it feels like it's over. The minute Tom Cruise starts to get thick and actually have to confront middle age, the spell breaks. And that last movie, watching everybody turn on it when it came out, after the reviews for the first, like, Dead Reckoning Part 1 were sort of, this is pretty good, but it's kind of long and I wonder where it's going. And then the second one comes out and it's just like, oh dear God, this should have been one movie and it could have been 3 hours, but this is overreaching. And I don't think, despite the ludicrous, literally and figuratively, level of acceleration and exaggeration in the Fast movies, I don't think they've hit it yet. Like, people want to see what's coming next.
I mean, people do, because people have become attached to the characters. I mean, that's always the thing. Like, you would not buy any of these increasingly ludicrous, both terms, shenanigans if you didn't want to see where they were going to end up on the other side. Obviously, together at a family barbecue. But that's the other thing. I mean, you don't, because of the nature of the way these action things are going, you're not putting their bodies through the ringer as much as you would a Tom Cruise, where it's very much following one man's body through a cavalcade of chaos and watching him run from point A to point B. These guys can just get in a car, sit down, relax, let the machine take over, do some intense steering motions and some gear shifts. But it's, their bodies do not have to do anything other than sit. They're completely ported into the action, and everything else is happening around them as a result of their body, but not because of the strength of it, which is why, you can keep going in this direction for quite a while.
Yeah, that explains why Steve McQueen wanted to make racing movies forever. Your knees don't go. You can
exactly. Yeah. Nobody's asking you to jump. No physical exertion is really required.
Yeah. I mean, if there are the occasional fist fights, but less and less, right? Like the frequency has dropped. I
mean, less and less. And again, they were never something that was really, you never got that sense of peril or anything like that. And no, nobody was, these aren't the kind of acrobatics that we're seeing in even like the John Wick movies. This is just like real slugfest, very meat and potatoes kind of fighting. And if anything is required, that requires a little bit more elasticity or ambitious choreography. That's when you bring in a new guy. It's often from, like the Southeast Asian scene of fighting to kind of spice things up. And then, you're just watching from the sidelines. It's like Tony Jaa comes in and kicks everybody's asses. Right.
And that's the secret weapon that brings in another chunk of audience that was previously like on the outside of the sphere.
Exactly. And that's you did that with Dwayne Johnson at the very beginning, and then you kept on doing it. Even when it became an obvious facsimile of what happened before. I mean, the funniest thing is like, okay, we can't get The Rock back into this. Let's bring in John Cena, who's just, just that tradition.
Who else do we have who is large?
Exactly. Yes, we need another large, and let's get Jack Reacher, Alan Ritchson in for 10. So like, just keep on getting on those guys until we have no doors big enough to accommodate everything.
When you were researching the book, was there anything that came up that like surprised you about the casting choices and the evolution of the series? Is there something that they tried that didn't work, or something that should have been bigger than it was?
I mean, there's a whole history of, coulda, woulda, shouldas in terms of who was going to be who. At the very beginning, Universal was very hot on getting Timothy Olyphant for the role of Dom in the first movie. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he had Gone in 60 Seconds coming out just around the same time, so there's a bit of kind of buzz around that. But yeah, he didn't even consider it. Also, Colin Farrell was another one in the running for Dom, whose name popped up several times. I don't know. This is just what happens. One of the kind of interesting things that I discovered was they were always the writers and producers were always fan casting. They were always trying to see and writing all these post-credit stingers in the hopes of getting somebody into the franchise eventually, who they haven't yet been able to. Jamie Foxx was somebody they had written a post-credit scene hoping to get him as a villain. And for one, they'd really wanted Denzel Washington to play the Kurt Russell role, which was introduced in, I think that's 7 of Mr. Nobody, the government agent. And there's been a very loudly vocal interest in getting Matt Damon as one of the villains for these throughout the years. All the cast that if you were to poll them, they would say Matt Damon is the one who should join this.
I mean, there is something really powerful in this diverse crew of elite everything's going up against the whitest man on earth.
Yeah, sure, exactly, yeah.
I would watch that.
A lot of square jaws in that. Oh, and Keanu Reeves, of course, has been in and out of consideration. I mean, he was the role played by Alan Ritchson, and the 10th one, our largest man yet, was actually up
Oh,
until very close to shooting was going to be Keanu.
interesting. I think the only way Keanu Reeves fits into this if he's playing John Wick, like just literally doing the persona.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's exactly what he has to do.
It's like, but anything is possible with these things now, which is so incredible that there is the sense that, they could. I mean, I don't know what's next. Some kind of Fantastic Voyage thing with nano cars would not be beyond the realm of this series at this point.
Completely not. I mean, that is actually a wonderful idea that I think they should go. But
Racing through the bloodstream of somebody.
yeah, exactly.
Letty, it'll be Letty. It's always
I'm near the heart. Um, but the problem is, and this is why, one of the reasons why we haven't seen the follow up to Fast Six in several years is that, as they have become bigger, they have become more unsustainable in terms of money. And there has been a lot of discussion about, if we're going to be able to keep this going, we need to scale it down. And if you were to talk to some hardcore members of the fan community, they would say, yeah, it's gotten too big. Let's get it back to some, not back to street racing, but back to the street, a more street level kind of thing.
Is that where you would want to see it go? I mean, you've spent more time with this than anyone who isn't involved with it.
I think X took it to its ceiling of absurdity in a lot of ways, and but I would think I would like it to get back to something like the territory that exists between 3 and 5, something that is a real journey and is more grounded in a way that we understand the physics and physicality of the danger that these people place themselves in, while still doing something crazy and absurd as dragging a safe full of money through a busy downtown corridor.
Right. Like, who are these people without the support that they have, without all
Exactly.
the machines, without all the funding?
Yeah, we can take away their warehouses full of fantastical concept cars, and we can take away government support that can parachute in, military troopers at a moment's notice, but we still need to see them do something extreme, out of the ordinary, and unbelievable.
Yeah, I would watch that. Honestly, that really appeals, the idea of a smaller scale giant movie.
Yeah,
just made out of old parts, right? Like,
yeah,
building a Jeep out of a wreckage of a warehouse, and
exactly.
Figuring out how to get the bad guy that way.
Yeah, and keep it to one location. And by that, I don't mean, a locked room mystery or anything like that, but just like one metropolitan city instead of crisscrossing across the globe. I mean, the best entries are always when they're in that, you get a very defined sense of place. Tokyo, Brazil, even 6 with London, even though that did eventually hopscotch all the way, over to Spain and stuff like that. But still, like, so for 10, when they're, going between New York back to Rio, they're in Russia, they're in, the Arctic, like, it was just, your mind was melting a little bit.
Yeah. There's definitely something to be said for simplicity. And I think that's when the action sequences are at their best, is when they may not be physically simple and incredibly complex like the safe heist, but at least you understand what's going on, as you said, like on an emotional and choreographic level. It's really simple to read and invest in. Plus, you occasionally have moments where the characters can't believe what they've done, so you get to enjoy that as the audience.
I mean, that's the best, and that's why 5 is so great, because as they're pulling off this heist, they are constantly looking at each other and going, oh my god, like, holy shit, how did we just do that? And then there's this wonderful moment where Jordana Brewster's on the radios and she's like, guys, I just like some police chatter, and did you just take out a bank? Like, they just can't fathom the path of destruction that they're laying in front of them. But 5, and just to bring it back to 5, is that we talk about the vault chase all the time, and I feel that is one of the defining moments in kind of action cinema history. But to take 5 apart, it is one of, I believe, 6 major set pieces in this movie. And we don't even get the full kind of cast reunion in this movie until about 45 to an hour in. There's just so much ambition and destruction that takes place before that. The bus crash of the train robbery, which culminates in driving the car off the cliff. The ambush in the favela. Like, it was just, there's so much.
Yeah, and there's still little things like Mia being pregnant that just
right. Yeah.
give gravitas to individual
some character
moments.
development. Yeah, exactly. Like, they make room for everything.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that's missing from some of the other bigger franchises. The Bond films can't evolve, right? They tried it with Craig, and I don't think they'll ever do it again.
No. And that's the other thing, is that you need that. The Bond films end with Bond, looking at the whatever he just exploded to save the day, and maybe kissing the Bond girl, and then that's it. And most of the superhero movies end in much the same way, with them looking at rubble and a defeated villain, and going on to the next thing. But these movies always end with a hug. The movies end with the characters reuniting and happy that they saved themselves, and cheering each other to live to see another day. It is very much not about what they just did, but more what has happened to them.
Yeah, you can say it. Family.
Yes, I don't know. Yeah.
Do people ask you to do it?
Nobody's asked me, really. I hope they do. If that is what is asked of me going forward in my life, I will not recuse myself.
It's a good place to end up.
Yeah.
My thanks to Barry Hertz, whose new book, Welcome to the Family, the explosive story behind Fast and the Furious, the blockbusters that supercharged the world, hits the shelves next Tuesday, November 25th, from the Hachette Book Group. You can pre-order it right now at your favorite indie bookstore. Barry's also launching the book on the 25th at the Hot Doc Cinema in Toronto, in conversation with Elamine Abdelmahmoud, and returning to the Hot Doc Cinema Friday, November 28th, to introduce a screening of the 2001 original, The Fast and the Furious, at 9 p.m. You can find tickets for those events at hotdocs.ca. You can find Barry on Instagram at Hertzberry, HERTZBARRY, and you can find Fast 5 on 4K Blu-ray and DVD from Universal Pictures Home Entertainment. It's also streaming on Prime Video in Canada and on Peacock, Roku, TBS, TNT, and True TV in the US, and available to rent or buy on various VOD services across North America. You can find me on Blue Sky at Norm Wilner, and you can find this podcast there at Semcast, SEMcast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. The first year of the show is still available for just $20 at payhip.com/semcast. That's the first 52 episodes of Someone Else's Movie, 41 of which aren't currently available anywhere else. And check out my newsletter, Shiny Things, at shiny-things.ghost.io. I think you'll enjoy it. Our theme song is by The Last Year. If you like it or the show in general, please say so. Leave a review wherever you've been listening. Every little bit helps, it truly does. And check out the other shows on the Frequency Podcast Network while you're doing that. Stay safe, watch movies, get all the boosters. I'll see you next week.